Hello and welcome everyone to this, our next episode of our Towns LP. I'm happy you decided to join me here today. Where we had left off, well, let's discuss some things first. So with this LP, the general plan, I suppose, is I'm going to kind of keep things on task in the beginning. So this is going to act as maybe a little bit of a mini tutorial for those of you who are new to the channel, or maybe just kind of a refresher course if you haven't played the game in a while. Now, that being said, so the first probably 8 or 9 episodes are probably going to run, they're going to run in the right order, so I'm going to play them back to back. There's going to be nothing skipped, because I do want to show newer players how to get their town set up, so I think that's important, and I think that's the number one miscommunication that's going on with the game right now, is that most people don't know how to get started. So in our last episode, we set up our carpentry, we set up our masonry, we got all of our tool benches in place, we got ourselves a bakery and a kitchen, so now what we need to do is we need to start making flour. So we're going to go to our utilities menu here, and we're going to make ourselves a couple of mills. So let's go ahead and place those, right there I suppose, and right there. And I have no idea, that bug right there where you saw my Steam overlay flash in, no clue why that happens. Normally when you open the Steam overlay it's going to be Shift and Tab, but for whatever reason when I Shift left click it's been opening the Steam overlay, so I'll probably disable it for future episodes. You can see here that a couple of my guys are jumping, they're springing into action, taking care of business, and I do want all these trees out of the way. Largely, I don't want to have this, I need area to build basically. We don't have a lot of space right now. This entire mountain's going to have to go, and with 10 civilians, it's going to be very rough to get that done. Now, how do these new mills work? I've heard that they've changed the way production works, so we're going to take a look. And let's find out here. We're going to have to wait until our entire wheat field's planted. So let me take stock of how much food we have first. We have 25 pears and 14 apples. That's going to last us a day or two, but it's not going to last us forever. So I am going to get them to work gathering more apples and pears. So remember, you can go up here to the top of your screen. You're going to go to your stocks menu, and you're going to go to your food menu in the early game. You're going to go here a lot. Make sure you're always checking on your apples and pears because your people will starve. There's not going to be any amazing exploding XML interface warning that your people are starving, do something. No, it's not going to do that. It's just going to let them starve, and then you're like, oh, and then you got to go back to the main menu and start a new town. And I have done that. I've done that sad walk many times, my friends. So keep an eye on your food stocks in the early game, I guess is the best rule of thumb. So we're going to continue lopping down trees. Hopefully nobody gets into major combat with any tree keepers. But for now, everybody's got a hammer, so that 600 attack power should allow them to overpower just about any mob that really tries to get up in their face. That should take care of business. And down here you can see that our wheat fields are being planted, so hopefully people will continue to take the wheat and replant it, because we need to have a reasonable wheat supply if we're going to do anything. With the way the new animal feeding system works, we're going to need tons of wheat. So we're going to need lots of townies, we're going to need lots of wheat. It's going to take a larger workforce in order to make sure people are fed. I'm probably not going to mess with the new animal system too much, but it would be nice to have some eggs on hand and things of that nature. So I'll probably make a chicken farm at some point, and that's probably how I'll occupy myself. Now, I would like to further till out this ground here. So let's go ahead and we're going to open that up, and we're going to till like crazy. We're going to till like there's no tomorrow. And hopefully, I'm going to keep an eye up here. And I noticed that they changed the way that your townies work. The townies in the last episode, when somebody got attacked by a tree keeper, they all dropped what they were doing and attacked the tree keeper, which they didn't used to do. They used to be like, well, sucks to be you, Chad. I'll see you in hell. And they would just let him get eaten by the tree keeper. Nowadays, that doesn't seem to be the case. There seems to have been some AI adjustment, so that is good. That is a change that I fully applaud and I fully get behind. So now that we're harvesting our wheat and most of our wheat fields have been planted, let's take a look around and we're going to see how this whole system works with dough. Ah, there it is, flour. Okay, so we can automate our flour. So what I'm going to say is that we should probably keep 15 flour on hand, and this is going to alleviate the issue we had in the last patch where you ended up with just loads of flour. You had to surround your mills with kind of a wall. And then, is that a bike? It actually looks like there's a seat and little pedals. So it's kind of a bike mill. You no longer need a cow. That's interesting. And they seem to be powered by ghosts or something. Yes, the new town is powered by ghosts. I failed to mention that. Normally on real estate, you have to disclose when your mills are powered by ghosts, but I'm being a sleazy real estate agent right now. So we need things for our bakery. Now that we have flares, we're creating flares. No, now that we're making flour, we need to get baking going. So we're going to need some more utilities. And I believe we need baker's ovens. So we're going to take those and we're just going to line this wall with baker's ovens. There we are. And we also need kitchen tables, as I recall. So we're going to go and we're just going to line this entire row with kitchen tables here. And we'll leave a little bit of space for other things. But for the most part, that should be enough. Now, we do have a reasonable supply of pine trees. So what I'd like to do with those is we need to automate the way that those are being harvested as well. And I believe we can go to that through the, let's see here, the materials menu. Now we have 116 wood, so we're in really good shape. However, let's see if we can find, there we go, the pine trees. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure that we always have, probably, I think 50 wood on hand would probably be the best way to do it. And I've heard they've put a new way in where you can, like, shift click or something. Yeah, and it'll do +5, maybe. Oh, okay. So if you shift click now, it'll actually do larger iterations of items so that you don't have to click 1,000 times like a noob like I just did. So that is a new adjustment that they've made. And that's another UI thing that I fully applaud. That's something that I can really get behind. A lot of the problems with this game are just user interface type stuff that really needs to be mopped up and cleaned up. And I'm glad to see that the developer is showing the initiative to take care of those issues. So now that we have our first table and our first ovens, what we can do, and it looks like we've got people who are hungry. Did they eat all the apples? No, there's apples and pears left. Good, good, good. So I was worried that they would get hungry and they wouldn't go handle their problems. I'm not going to set aside stockpiles too much for right now. Stockpiling is not going to be something that I'm going to concern myself with too heavily, because stockpiling means that you have yourself a hauling queue, and then your townies tend to just go crazy just doing things that you don't want them to do. You can adjust the queue through here in the priorities panel, and I've heard that they've added a new category for hauling and things like that, and I don't know which it is, but I'm not going to look at it for too long. Largely, by and large, it seems as though the queue is the way you want it when you first start the game. So now that that's done, we're going to go to our food menu, we're going to go to baking, and I'm going to say to keep, I don't know, let's keep maybe 50 bread on hand. That seems like a reasonable amount right now, just to make sure everybody gets fed at all times. And that is going to clog up my queue a little bit, so my work queue is going to be a little cluttered for the next little bit, but that's okay because we want to make sure that we have things where we need them. So they're placing all of our bakery tables in, and as you can see, they're industriously grabbing the flour and moving forward and kind of throwing it in these ovens here. It's behind the ovens. What we need to do now is maybe put in some storage. So let's grab some containers, and we're going to take prepared food barrels, and I suppose we'll use the kitchen for those. So we'll use this kitchen space. We'll put in 5 barrels, I think should be enough for now, and we'll probably line this entire area. As our town gets bigger and bigger, we'll probably line this area with barrels just so they can store up food. I always felt like in the last Let's Play I was kind of in front of the pistol or behind the 8-ball. I use those sayings a lot, but I felt like I was a little behind my work queue in that a lot of the time I felt as though we had just enough food but we didn't have a surplus, and I would very much like in this Let's Play to always have a surplus so that we don't have to deal with any crazy things happening. Now, we've got this river, and I'm going to take a look at the overall topography and just kind of get a mental image of what I want the city to look like. And there's our first lonely grave. The first casualty of many, I promise you. These towns tend to be built on the blood of my townies, not on my particular skill. So, looking around, this mountain's going to have to go. This mountain's definitely going to have to go. This one's going to have to go. Basically, all these mountains are going to be gone. And I don't think this is a topography that really promotes creative juices. Like, there's not going to be a whole lot of cool stuff I can do, like with awesome islands. So, architecturally, I think I'm going to have to play around a little more. But once again, my main problem with building architecture in towns is that things will not connect by the corners. They will only connect by open faces. So that limits what you can do a little bit in terms of making your buildings look cool and kind of creative. Now let's take a look at our bread supply and see how far along they are at cooking. It looks like they've got 20 of the breads made, maybe 21, okay. And once they get done with those, they should hop in and start making the barrels that we need, just to make sure I have all the things I need. I needed a wood detailer and a carpenter's bench. So once that's done, we'll go ahead and I think I'm going to equip everyone with armor. This is usually a pretty good tactic in the early game. The closer you are to the froggies, the faster you're going to want to do this step. So if the froggies, like, I'm not really rushing because the froggies are way over here in the corner and I'm way down here on the map, so they're not really a threat to me. However, if the froggies were, say, right over here and you wanted to risk the map anyways, or you just liked the map for whatever reason, you're going to want to arm your civilians as quickly as possible. Like, that's going to be one of your first goals the closer the froggies are. So now that we've done that, we've discussed general safety, we need to look around and let's go ahead and start getting some housing put in. So our first big housing area is probably just going to be kind of a dorm setup, kind of a longhouse or maybe something of that nature. And where do I want it to be? I think that it'll probably look nice. We need a 2-space. So let's go ahead and I'm going to do 4x4s for each room. And we're just going to separate them. And I may actually make this kind of a flop house in the early game. Kind of what our tavern was in the last game, actually. Probably something similar to that. So there we are. And we need a walkway in between, so there's that. And I think that should give us enough space. So what we'll do there is keep putting in these 4x4s. And this gentleman lucked out and has a tree in his room. I guess if you can call that lucking out, I don't know. And that's going to leave us with a walkway in the center, I think, because we're going to have a wall here and a little walkway in between so that everybody can get to their rooms. And then once we do that, there will probably be kind of a vestibule on this side, and what I'll do is I'll build a ladder at one end, and this is actually going to be a multi-layer structure so that we can fit maybe 15, 20 townies into one building. And as you can see, it's assigned everyone to their rooms, including Duke Corcel with the Channel 8 Townie News. So we have spaces now for everyone, 10. We have exactly enough spaces, and I feel like I'm going to put some houses over here as well, and we're going to have to build these separately, and I wanted to cancel that one. That one, I did not like the spacing on that, so we'll put some along the waterfront because people do like to live alongside the water, and these are going to be a little larger. These are going to be for the wealthier members of our society who can actually afford things. I don't think that's where I want it, and I don't think anybody's going to want to live next to a gravestone. People in towns they tend to be a little superstitious. They don't like ghosts, they don't like goblins, and so forth. So let's add, well, I'll keep that open for workshops. We'll add another house, maybe facing right here. Kind of the same thing. We'll make kind of a little residential area maybe, and this will be kind of a duplex. There we are. That one will be its own standalone thing, and there we are. And I wanted to make this one a little less symmetric than last time, just to make sure that it looks kind of natural. Now, towns are built semi-symmetrical, but you do kind of have outliers where people have stuff randomly placed around, so we'll look into that as time goes along. And now that we have those in place, I'm going to take a look at my wood stocks. And that's going to be found here. We have 73 wood left. And maybe I will lower this a tad. This seems to be a bit much. I don't want people sitting around all day, every day making food, which is another problem that towns tends to have. Your townies really, really like making food. And I understand that you can lower it on the priorities, but the moment you do that, it seems like they kill themselves off by not making food. And so really, I try not to fiddle too much with it. And I think these workshops are actually placed too close. I should have put an extra space in between. What can you do? So, yeah, this is all going to be placed too close, but we had to remake all this anyways. I didn't really like the placing of these. These were just temporary workstations, so that's fine. That works out. There's our barrels. As soon as all of these are done, they should be able to start moving these to our homies, the barrels. And yeah, we should be done with food very shortly as long as they stop stuffing their fat faces. Townies, stop it. Stop eating. I command you to starve a little bit more. Quantitatively starve a tad and then eat so that we can get other stuff done. Maybe. Alright, so that being more or less finished, it seems like a lot of people are focusing on flour still, which maybe we need to lower that a tad. So let's go to our gathering. We'll lower that to maybe 10 so that we have 10 flour on hand, because we only have 10 workers anyway, so having 15 flour on hand doesn't make a lot of sense. And things are flashing up here. Tree keepers die, chickens die. Alright, so that's fine. Does everybody have a weapon? Let's take a look and make sure everybody's equipped. Alright, fantastic. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to our military menu. And we're going to go to, not weapons, we're going to go to armor. And we're going to make everyone some wooden armor. So I want 10 helmets. There we are. And just in case you didn't know, the number on the left is how many you want them to craft. The number on the right is how many you want them to keep on hand. So this is kind of like continuous build over here on the right, and this is just kind of a one-time deal over here on the left. So I want them to craft exactly 10. If I put 10 over here, it meant no matter how many were equipped, they always want 10 on hand in our stockpiles. And that is not what we want. That is far, far too many armors for right now. So we're going to get everybody equipped with some gear so that if any renegade froggies run in, they have armor. Everybody, they don't get encumbered or anything like that. There's no nerf to your characters for being fully equipped while they work. Hopefully that's something they'll add in the future. But for now, you're able to equip everyone with gear so that if the unthinkable happens and they are all attacked by froggies or whatever else when you first open up the dungeon, they will not be slaughtered just viciously, because frankly they're pretty worthless at fighting. Your townies are pretty terrible at fighting unless you give them gear. So at this point I'm going to start evening out this mountain, which I may do off camera. It seems like something that I don't think many people are going to want to watch me do. Evening out a mountain takes time, and we don't have a lot of civilians, so I'm actually thinking it's going to take a long time to get it done. The other thing that's important is we need to get a market set up. So let's go ahead and designate a market zone real fast. And once we get a market in place, we can actually, on occasion, merchants will show up every now and again. And let me get on the right layer. Once again, that seems to be something I'm just not very good at. And there we are. We'll put our market there. That's our temporary market. We're not going to keep that for long. But for now, it's just a place where people can show up and sell us goods so that in the early game we can get iron, we can get some gold, we can get some copper, and really all it takes is 1 or 2 guardsmen with gold weapons in the early game, and you will never have another threat to your safety ever again. They will just mow through every mob down to like the -10, -12 layer. So you'll be very, very safe if you get at least one guy equipped in gold gear. So once we have our market in place, let's continue to whittle away at this mountain. I feel like they made cleaning up mountain spaces a little faster, actually. It doesn't feel like digging is taking quite as long. So I'll go ahead and designate those for the moment. Hopefully, I like the way the game runs now. I feel like everything runs a lot smoother. Like in terms of the frame rate, it feels like things are much, much better. So before I had an issue where I could only play for 20 or 30 minutes at a time before the Java clogged up and it just couldn't handle all the crazy stuff that was going on. Now, everything feels a bit more streamlined, so I think the developer made some adjustments to the code. That's a very good thing. So in these first few episodes, I apologize if these aren't the most entertaining of Let's Plays. I'm not being goofy or wacky just yet, because right now this is kind of a serious part of the game where you have to put your nose to the grindstone and you have to get things done right here. There's not a whole lot of room for error in the early game in towns. If you mess up early, it tends to, well, I mean, it tends to exacerbate your death. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. You'll probably end up dead if you mess around a little too much in the early game. So all those things finished off, we're going to continue whittling away at this mountain to give ourselves some extra pasture land, some extra space. This mountain's probably going to be down the line somewhere. So our most important mountains that have to die right now are probably this one and this one. We're going to get a reasonable amount of stone from this one, which is important. And once we get that, I think we should be ready to start burrowing down into the dungeon. So for the next episode, this is a good stopping point. So I'm going to stop this episode here. In the next episode, our mission is going to be to get a tavern up and running, so we need some heroes. We're going to get a tavern up and running, we're going to start furnishing houses, and we're going to start getting our general township looking a little bit better. We want everything to look spiffy, we want everything to look clean, we want more townies to come in, and then we also need a dining room so that when they're eating, they generate happiness. So once we get a dining room and a tavern in, we should be able to speed through and open up the dungeon down below. It looks like they've got all of our stuff crafted, unless we ran out of wood. No, we didn't. We didn't run out of wood. It's just kind of back in the queue right now. I think they're actually focusing on food. So once we get our dining room, our tavern, and some of our general niceties, our decorations, our furnishings, we should be ready to start delving down into the dungeon. And then we can get a little more creative and start messing around with some architecture, making some cool buildings. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope to see you there. My name is Splattercat. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And I hope you'll take care out there. Be safe, everybody. I'll see you next time.